From the moment Mia stepped onto the witness stand, every eye in the courtroom was fixed firmly on her. Using a pseudonym for her own safety, Mia was about to unleash explosive allegations against music mogul Sean "Diddy" Combs, one of the most powerful men in entertainment. In a voice steady but marked by emotion, she vividly described her years as Combs' personal assistant as a roller coaster of chaos, manipulation, and fear. Her testimony immediately shattered the glamorous facade surrounding Diddy's empire, describing a shocking world of substance-fueled parties, violent outbursts, and deeply disturbing personal violations. She told jurors how the man once considered her mentor could swing wildly between kindness and cruelty, one moment acting like her best friend, and the next unleashing vicious threats and degrading humiliation. Her revelations didn't hold back, claiming Combs subjected her to physical attacks, such as violently throwing her into walls and even pushing her into pools fully clothed. Actions designed, she suggested, not just to hurt, but to assert his dominance. As Mia spoke, the courtroom seemed to collectively hold its breath, gripped by the disturbing details unfolding before them. But this was just the beginning. Mia was about to reveal even darker secrets she'd kept hidden for years, fearing for her life and her future every time she dared to consider speaking out. And what she described next would prove even more chilling. As Mia's testimony deepened, the disturbing details she revealed became impossible to ignore. She recounted with unsettling clarity the frequent episodes of mistreatment and intimidation she endured at Combs' hands. One vivid memory involved Combs hurling her violently against a wall, her back colliding painfully against the hard surface. Another incident she described involved being thrown into a swimming pool fully clothed, humiliation and fear washing over her as others watched in silence. Perhaps most shocking was her recounting of an incident when Combs cruelly dumped an ice bucket over her head, an act of humiliation meant to remind her of her place. Mia made it painfully clear how trapped she felt, terrified that saying no to Combs was simply not an option. She explained her constant dread. If she resisted or fought back, she would lose everything she'd worked for, and worse, become a public enemy branded as untrustworthy or unstable. In her words, Combs held the power to destroy her career with a single phone call, twisting the narrative to make her appear as the villain. Mia's emotional testimony pulled the courtroom deeper into her nightmare, painting a chilling portrait of the oppressive atmosphere that surrounded Combs. Yet, the horror Mia described wasn't limited to physical mistreatment. It escalated into even darker territory, leading her to moments of sheer terror that would later haunt her relentlessly. What happened next would reveal just how deep her trauma ran, bringing the trial to a shocking new level. But nothing highlighted Mia's trauma more vividly than the terrifying aftermath of Cassie Ventura's legal complaint against Combs in November 2023. Mia recounted how, at first, she felt relieved to be distanced from the chaos, until her past came crashing back into her life unexpectedly. It began with a call from D-Rock, one of Combs' former bodyguards. Initially, she felt a brief surge of happiness, thinking it might be an innocent check-in from a friend she once trusted. But as the conversation unfolded, her relief quickly morphed into panic. She realized, with sinking dread, that D-Rock was calling directly from Combs' home, trying to reconnect her with the man she feared most. Her heart raced, panic surging through her veins. Terrified, threatened, scared, nervous. Those were the raw emotions she described feeling in that moment. In her desperation, Mia knew she had to protect herself, quickly devising a game plan to evade further danger. Yet her fear spiraled to new heights days later when she saw Combs himself attempting to contact her directly. At the mere sight of his name flashing on her phone screen, Mia reacted instinctively, throwing the phone violently across the room, desperate to escape the looming presence of her tormentor. Without pausing to think, she ran outside, overwhelmed by fear and trauma triggered simply by a phone call. Her testimony made it clear that Combs' shadow continued to haunt her, leaving emotional scars that refused to heal. Yet, even these shocking revelations paled in comparison to the courtroom bombshells still waiting to drop. Mia's revelations weren't isolated. Her story was a critical piece of a much larger, deeply troubling puzzle that prosecutors painted vividly in court. At the heart of Combs' mounting legal troubles was Cassie Ventura's explosive filing, submitted in November 2023, alleging years of psychological and physical mistreatment. The complaint sent shockwaves through the entertainment world, not only because of its disturbing claims, but also due to its lightning-fast resolution. Combs settled for an eye-watering $20 million within just one day. Prosecutors argued this rapid settlement was no mere coincidence, but a desperate attempt to silence Ventura and control the damage. Even more alarming, prosecutors presented evidence that suggested Combs had repeatedly tried to influence or intimidate potential witnesses, reaching out directly and indirectly, even after his arrest. Assistant U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson detailed to the court how Combs allegedly contacted at least one individual connected to the case right after Ventura's complaint, and continued to engage with witnesses as recently as July 2024, intensifying accusations of interference. Mia's own traumatic experience with D-Rock's intimidating call served as chilling corroboration of this broader narrative. Prosecutors framed these actions as calculated attempts by Combs and his associates to maintain control, silence those coming forward, and manipulate the narrative surrounding the case. But as prosecutors built their case, Combs' defense was preparing a fierce counterattack, one that would attempt to dismantle Mia's credibility entirely, questioning her motives and pointing to shocking contradictions in her own online presence. What they uncovered next would leave the courtroom stunned. When Diddy's defense lawyer, Brian Steele, stepped forward, the entire energy in the courtroom shifted dramatically. Steele quickly went on the offensive, meticulously pointing out what he called glaring contradictions between Mia's harrowing testimony and her own social media posts. In a calculated move, Steele presented the jury with images Mia had publicly shared, including a notably surreal birthday tribute from 2013. In that image, taken from a comedy skit, Diddy appeared humorously cast as a doctor helping Mia give birth to a dream, captioned warmly, "Shout out to my mentor." Steele seized on this, confronting Mia with the unsettling question. Here, you've posted on your personal account the person you now say caused you years of distress delivering the baby? His tone incredulous, he relentlessly questioned her motivations, emphasizing how her public persona seemed to directly contradict the traumatic narrative she described in court. Mia, visibly distressed yet unwavering, responded with raw honesty. These posts were purely a facade, an idealized illusion carefully crafted for the public eye. Instagram was a place to show how great your life was, even if it wasn't true, she clarified, explaining that many of her followers were loyal fans of Diddy, and maintaining the illusion was essential to avoid suspicion and retaliation. Her voice trembled slightly as she detailed the hidden layers beneath her polished social media presence, describing how even innocent-seeming messages, like someone casually asking, "Where are you?" filled her with anxiety and dread. Mia's candid revelations brought a tense silence to the courtroom, highlighting the complex, painful reality hidden behind the bright facade she once projected. Yet, even as the defense sought to chip away at her credibility, the most haunting details of Mia's story were still to be unveiled. As the courtroom braced itself, Mia took a deep breath, preparing to share perhaps the most haunting details of all, accusations that reached a chilling new depth of trauma. With unmistakable pain in her voice, she recounted an incident that occurred shortly after she began working for Combs. It was 2009 during the extravagant celebrations surrounding Combs' 40th birthday party, where the lines between celebration and coercion blurred dangerously. Mia revealed that amid the glittering chaos of the event, Combs had cornered her and crossed a serious boundary by kissing her against her will, a disturbing violation she initially tried to brush off as a shocking but isolated incident. However, this was tragically only the beginning. Months later, Mia found herself at Combs' Los Angeles home, sleeping in a bunk bed, believing she was safe among colleagues. But safety proved an illusion, as she described being startled awake in terror to find Combs engaging in unwanted physical contact, an egregious betrayal that shattered any sense of trust. Mia testified that these traumatic violations weren't isolated, they recurred over the years. Each time it happened, the unpredictable intervals seemed cruelly calculated to give her just enough hope that it would never happen again, only for the nightmare to return. With visible anguish, she admitted she never disclosed these incidents during earlier settlements about unpaid overtime, fearing severe retaliation. Mia's deeply emotional testimony painted a devastating portrait of long-term trauma hidden behind fame, profoundly impacting everyone listening. Yet even this wasn't the full extent of the story. The courtroom was about to hear how Mia's experiences fit into a broader pattern, one shared by other women who would soon take the stand. While Mia's testimony vividly exposed her nightmare, it also revealed the disturbing duality that defined working for Sean Diddy Combs. Mia described her 8-year tenure with Combs from 2009 until she finally left in 2017 as a surreal blend of extraordinary highs and soul-crushing lows. The glamorous lifestyle, luxurious surroundings, and exciting industry opportunities initially seemed like a dream come true. At times, she genuinely felt fortunate to be part of the inner circle of one of entertainment's most influential figures. But beneath that dazzling surface lay a grim reality marked by fear, exploitation, and trauma. Mia explained how, despite suffering repeated violations, she remained trapped by the promise of professional opportunity and the fear of devastating retaliation. When she finally found the strength to break away from Combs' oppressive hold, it came with significant personal cost. She described the eventual financial settlement she received, $250,000 of a $400,000 claim to compensate her for unpaid overtime and bonuses. Yet, she admitted painfully in court, even then she kept silent about the deeper trauma, never mentioning the violations to her lawyers due to overwhelming fear. The defense pointed to the affectionate language Mia occasionally used in communications, terms like family and love, to challenge her credibility. But Mia explained it plainly. In that world, emotional language was expected, a professional survival mechanism rather than genuine affection. Her post-Combs life had been a battle against debilitating PTSD, leaving her unable to sustain employment or regain a sense of normalcy. Yet, Mia's heartbreaking revelations were far from isolated. Her testimony foreshadowed additional, equally harrowing stories from other women, revealing a broader, darker pattern that threatened to tear Combs' carefully built empire apart. But Mia's chilling testimony wasn't alone. It resonated strongly with other powerful voices who had already stepped forward, and even more yet to come. Cassie Ventura, Combs' former longtime partner, had opened this explosive trial with 4 days of emotionally charged testimony, unveiling deeply disturbing details about her relationship with the music icon. Cassie bravely described years of psychological pressure, claiming that Combs had compelled her to participate in explicit, degrading situations with hired individuals, events she hauntingly termed as freak-offs. Her powerful words echoed the traumatic experiences Mia herself had recounted, painting a grim picture of exploitation and coercion at the highest levels of fame. Now, with Cassie's testimony fresh in the jury's minds, Mia's story added critical weight, reinforcing the prosecution's narrative that Combs' alleged behavior was not isolated, but part of a larger, troubling pattern. As Mia concluded her testimony, the prosecution prepared the courtroom for yet another explosive chapter. The story of a third woman identified simply as Jane, who was expected to describe her own harrowing experiences involving similar unwanted scenarios. Anticipation filled the courtroom, as jurors and spectators alike wondered just how deep and far-reaching this pattern truly was. With each new revelation, the accusations grew more disturbing, more impossible to ignore, setting the stage for an intense, high-stakes battle that could leave Combs facing the possibility of life in prison. Yet even as Mia stepped down from the stand, the lingering weight of her words left a haunting question hanging over the courtroom. Just how many more secrets were still waiting to emerge? As Mia left the witness stand, the weight of her revelations lingered heavily over the courtroom. Her emotional testimony had exposed shocking layers of trauma, manipulation, and alleged exploitation at the heart of Diddy's glamorous empire. What began as accusations from one brave voice quickly expanded, highlighting disturbing patterns of coercion and fear echoed by multiple survivors. The trial had peeled back the curtain on a deeply troubling world, raising unsettling questions about power, fame, and accountability in the entertainment industry. Now, Combs faces a daunting battle, not just for his freedom, but also for his reputation and legacy, as the jury weighs the chilling evidence against him. With charges that could carry life in prison if convicted, the stakes have never been higher for one of music's most iconic figures. But beyond the fate of Combs himself, this case shines a harsh spotlight on a system that for years allowed such troubling behavior to remain hidden, protected by power and silence. Mia's courage in coming forward has already resonated far beyond this trial, inspiring countless others to break their silence and demand justice. ultimately, the outcome of this landmark case will do more than just determine one man's guilt or innocence. It could forever reshape the conversation about abuse, exploitation, and the true cost of fame.